Hello everyone, welcome to another Modest Musings. My name is Fear Dragon, and today's topic is going to be about how things are a metaphor for other things in life. And I'm specifically going to be talking about martial arts, because that's something that actually has had a pretty profound impact on my life in general. And I think it's where I really first discovered this whole idea, this concept that things are oftentimes just metaphors for life. Uh, so way back in the day, for those who are not familiar with the long history of martial arts and everything, I'm not going to go too deep into this because I'm pretty sure most people know. Used to have like this totally different culture around, especially in a lot of the Asian cultures, whether it be Japanese or Chinese, etc., where martial arts was considered not just this way of combating people physically, it was a way of life. That was like a phrase that was tossed around a lot, or is tossed around a lot, in regards to old school martial arts back in the day, is that it was a way of life. And what does that mean? Because that sounds very silly, right? That sounds very weird and ambiguous and very martial artsy in the sense that it's like, ooh, you hear like the random tipper down of the droppings of wisdom from your sensei or something, and it doesn't make sense because it's some weird metaphor. But the reason why actually a lot of the old martial arts movies and all that stuff will kind of go into these metaphors for so many things. Or like, I think one of the most common ones that you'd hear is Bruce Lee. You have or I think it was like Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, which is of course boxing, but still similar, where it's like, sting, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. You had Bruce Lee, be like water, my friend. All of these things are metaphors, and they're metaphors that are not directly related to martial arts, but they found ways that they applied to martial arts, and then they found ways that it applies to the rest of their life. One of my favorite examples is from Bruce Lee's, the whole flow like water. When you have water, for example, think of it like the ocean, right? On the ocean, or I guess not just the ocean, but like by the beach, right? So you have by the beach, the water is coming in. It's like going in toward to the sand and everything, toward like the surface, the land basically. And then it eventually, after it finally like hits its end, it pulls back, and it goes in and then pulls back. And there's kind of like that gradual rhythm to that. And what Bruce Lee says is, like, you kind of, whenever it's going in, it's basically flowing with it. And if you try and fight the water head on at, say, the beach or something, you're just trying to go straight up against the water, it's going to, a lot of the time, just knock you down, right? The water can be pretty strong, especially like those waves are really strong. But if you go back with the wave as it's coming into land, and then it starts receding and you follow it, then you can actually go a lot further toward into the ocean without really kind of hitting that same sort of comeback. And you actually notice the same thing is true in martial arts. If someone is punching you, so I always like to just do visual examples. So someone's punching you this way, right? If you just try and stop them head on, you're going to encounter like a lot more force. It's a lot harder. But if you kind of just roll with it a little bit and you go back with them, then they're going to have to pull their hand back, right? So that's when you follow through, and then you basically are using their momentum or their opportunity that they're creating, and you're just following them. So you're staying with them. A lot of it kind of reminds me of there's like the Chinese finger trap, where if you aren't familiar with this, Google it. The idea is, if you just pull really hard on both sides, you have a finger in each end of this. If you pull really hard on both sides, it's really difficult to make it out. But if you push together and then remove it, then you could actually get your fingers out. That's why it's called like the Chinese finger trap or whatever. But there's just like this concept of, sometimes it's easier to flow with someone if you want to, I guess, defeat them in a way. And this is even applicable, I think, to, let's say, conversations and stuff. I think one of the most obvious examples would be something like, you have that one very hard-headed friend who just, if you go head to head with them in an argument, they get very defensive. They have their stance about, I don't know, let's say it's balance or something, right? StarCraft balance. They're just so convinced that Protoss is OP and blah, blah, blah. And, they're Zerg players, and Zerg is unplayable because Protoss is so OP as shit. And if you just combat them saying, no, Zerg is actually really good right now, and you're like crazy and you're stupid, blah, 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 and here's why, like, you can be giving them reasonable arguments and everything, and you could even, for all intents and purposes, actually be right about this. But the way that you're combating them is it's this. You're combating them head on and hard. And maybe in some of those situations, it's more effective to kind of flow with them. Yeah, Zerg really does struggle with a lot of these things that Protoss do. But, there are also maybe, some things. How do you feel about like when, Zerg do this? Like, have you found success with this kind of stuff? You're kind of working with them. You're flowing with them. You're not just combating them head on. And then you're kind of finding the opportunity to move back in that direction and move them back in that direction sort of gently. And that whole concept is like a new way, or a different approach to discussing something with someone and trying to change their mind about something. And sometimes that's not actually going to be the right way. Sometimes you do sort of, I won't say berate them is the proper way to like do it usually. And sometimes it is a little bit more effective depending on the type of person and the situation. Just kind of swat things down and say like, that's not how it is. Like, you're just wrong. And here are the facts. And that will actually be the most effective way to kind of change their opinion or their mind about something. It really just depends on the situation. But that's kind of what I mean by things are oftentimes metaphors for other things in life. That whole concept of just, flowing like water at the beach. That whole concept goes from there to like actual physically fighting to conversations. I mean, I could even probably bring it into kind of how you treat marine splitting versus banelings. The banelings are I'm trying to like do this in a nice way for the camera, but the banelings are coming on in, and the marines go from this big old clump and they move back. And then as the banelings and the lings try to split, because the marines are just trying to move away, then you're starting to follow and you're moving in as they're trying to retreat. Like, there's all kinds of like weird things that you can do, or like metaphors or not tangents. I'm like blanking on the words right now, which sucks because this is literally a vlog where I'm trying to explain something. But there's a lot of similarities that you can feel between the two situations, or like the multiple situations. And it kind of just goes to show you that so many things, even in StarCraft, there are a bunch of things that I feel like I've realized in StarCraft. I know people talk about this, about like efficiency and the idea of unused resources. Don't bank your resources and stuff. That's actually very true, I think, in a lot of different aspects of life. That's actually how I really started to understand a lot more about the stock market and stuff, is people started explaining to me, just StarCraft resources and why you need to spend your minerals and why you don't bank or, have your resources invest in all these other things that don't give any value. Like, if you queue up multiple workers or something, then you're not actually getting value out of those queued up workers, but you've already invested your money there. That's kind of like just having your money sit in a bank that doesn't really give you a lot of yield, when you could be investing that money somewhere else that is giving you some return. Sure, your workers may get sniped off. Sure, you might lose some of the money, but you're investing it into something that you're hoping is going to turn out into a better future. Like, there are all these different metaphors and concepts in life, and I think that is why martial arts has been so important to me in life, and why StarCraft oftentimes actually teaches me quite a bit about just life in general. It's not all about just these single segmented aspects of life. I think that a lot of it is kind of interconnected. This is where I kind of get, like, not even philosophical, but just, spiritual or whatever, all life is connected and stuff. I don't necessarily mean it in the super duper spiritual sense, but just, I think that there are so many lessons in life that are cross applicable. There are general concepts that apply to almost every other aspect in life. And if you keep your mind open and your eyes open, you might notice a couple of things that, some of these lessons you've already learned, you can use them and utilize them in other aspects of life. So that's kind of my I don't think I explained it super well, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that. That was kind of my modest musings for today, because I had a dream about retaking my black belt test, which was miserable. So I woke up straight up in a sweat. Because my black belt, oh god, because I was just doing push-ups repeatedly in my dream. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. And also, I think I'm closing in on 1,000 YouTube subscribers, which is kind of cool. But I got my YouTube pretty much just used for modest musings, and I guess for random other videos I like putting up. So Yeah, it's not super often, but I do appreciate everyone that subscribes and watches all these videos. It really does mean a lot, especially if you made it to the end of the video. I'm actually amazed at how many people occasionally do tell me, like, yeah, that they actually really like my modest musings. So have a wonderful rest of your week and keep StarCrafting.